Hi, thank you for joining me at the Nappy Frappe. I'm your host, Cheryl Monique, and today we are going to be talking about racism, blackness, and the danger of wearing black skin. I am a mother now. I just had my son in October of 2018, and he is my everything. And I always thought I'd have a little girl. I only pictured a little girl. So when I saw his little testicles on the sonogram, it was like, oh, then it was like, oh. I was prepared to teach a girl how to protect herself and assert herself. But the idea of my black son, teaching him to be strong and powerful and assertive in a world that almost criminalizes strength in black men. And it just rips my heart apart thinking about the conversation that the many conversations I'm going to have with him and the things I probably won't let him do out of fear that he won't come home. Parties, tailgating, just simple things that my friends with white children don't have to think about. And this is just such a frustrating conversation to have because it feels like we're constantly going in circles. It's a circular argument. There's all these straw man defenses where someone takes your argument and brings up something you didn't say. They manipulate into something that it's not about so they can argue about that. And then I feel like we internalize so many of these false narratives to where it becomes the discussion within the culture. And it's like, what the is going on? And if anybody knows me, with everything that as you get into the Nappy Frappe, you're going to realize my perspective on things is usually complicated. There's usually a lot of duality in it. And so I'm I've always been pretty pro police. I'm pretty pro cop. I have had great relationships with cops growing up. I was in the police athletic league and a lot of other programs where police officers played a large part in the community outreach. Um, Even though growing up in the projects, I didn't feel anything about going up to a cop as a kid and asking for $1 to get an ice cream cone. Usually we get it, confidence. But I am anti-police brutality, and everyone should be both. The idea that it's either Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter, that's the stupidest thing ever. We should all be both. There was a point where I was a police cadet for the NYPD. And the cadets, somewhat like an internship program, where I was a student, but you kind of go through a programming at the police academy and you learn the training, you learn the service. We're not giving guns or anything like that, but I was a police cadet during 9/11, which definitely brought together even more of a brotherhood, a sisterhood, brotherhood, mankind thing. And it definitely made me feel closer to cops. And I have friends who have become police officers. And all that's to say, being anti-police brutality is no more being anti-cop than being anti-child abuse is being anti-parenthood. It's like, if you can be a parent without beating your children, you can be a cop without beating Black people. And it is the craziest thing that we keep having to have this conversation like one and the same. And the things on the news, it's just like, oh, you know? I don't know if you guys seen this video going around, but there is a video of the NYPD police union leader making this speech. And it is just so full of dog whistles and just lies, because I don't believe they don't believe it. To say that Black mothers aren't afraid for their children in New York City because they can be accosted by the police, that's certainly true. There are documentaries out right now, Crime and Punishment. It's on Netflix. It's about 9 NYPD officers that had to battle against quotas. And in that, it talks about children being teenagers, children, Black and Latino kids being purposely targeted by the police to fill quotas. That's scary. That is a scary thing for your child to be coming home and accosted because he looks a certain way. I remember being young and being afraid of fitting the description. As a teenager, of course you're wearing the same thing. That's what teenagers do. Teenagers want to follow trends and be trendy and fabulous and all that. And we wear the same things because that's what's in style. And us having on the same clothes, there needs to be more to fitting a description and pulling someone over and stop and frisk and all of this craziness. Of course, Black mothers are afraid. That's just the reality of our situation, because no, we don't believe that 40,000 cops in New York are all racist or all targeting children. But I can't identify the bad ones. I don't know which cops are not the good cops. The cops know which cops aren't the good cops, and you protect them. That is a problem. The idea of, a bad apple, a few bad apples. Well, guess what? A single bad apple can ruin the bunch. And it is not my job to dig out the bad apples. It's your job. And frankly, when Derek Chauvin put his knee on George Floyd's neck, that bad apple ruined the other 3 apples that were there with him. Because if you're so spoiled, if you're so rotten in your idea of what serve and protect is, that you can't pull someone off of someone's neck. You can't pull a fellow officer off of someone's neck as he's choking to death. You two are the problem. If you stand guard so no one else can help this guy, if anyone standing around with those cameras tried to jump in, they would have been murdered. And then the video would have just been, it would have been no video. You wouldn't have seen. If you did, it would have said cops accosted during an arrest. There is not a need for deadly force every time you come in contact with someone, Black or white. The argument that, oh, well, they kill white people too, that'll make me feel better. Especially because we are targeted more. Black people are stopped more. They're policed more. Our communities don't have the same experience as nicer communities. If you live in Beverly Hills or Baldwin Hills, when the police come into you, and that's a Black area, but if you're rich and the police come into your area, you tend to be treated respectfully. Now, the thing is, as a Black person, there's no guarantee. Because if your neighbors don't know you in your nice neighborhood, they'll call the cops, and the cops will see a Black person and assume you're supposed to be poor. And that means you're a criminal. These kind of prejudices lend to us being murdered, harassed, then murdered. You can't say you're afraid of us, pull us over more than everybody else, and kill us. Either you're afraid of us or you're targeting us. And these are discussions I have to process to try to filter through to how do I start talking to my child and when. Because last time I checked, we live in a country that Second Amendment rights apply to everybody. So everyone's allowed to have a gun. We're murdered when we don't have a gun. But when we happen to have a gun, toy gun in a playground, a gun in Walmart where they sell that gun, they sold it there. Murdered. You have a licensed weapon, you tell the cop you have a licensed weapon, and he shoots you in front of your child. These are just incidences that we catch on camera. How often are cameras not out? I know every time I'm pulled over by the cops, I don't have time to get my camera out. I'm so nervous about moving a certain way and freaking somebody out and being killed that I don't have time to process. Let me get my phone out just in case. And I don't want to be someone's damn hashtag. And I definitely don't want my child to be. The idea that that police union chief tried to imply that New York mothers are not afraid is BS. To try to say that they're different from Derek Chauvin, they don't do that here. You literally did that here. You literally choked someone to death here in New York. And I know for a fact New York cops are trained better than everyone else because I was in the police academy. Everything people suggest for training, they get it. You are supposed to never shoot your gun unless you are met with deadly force. It doesn't mean someone has a knife. It means they're about to use that knife on you. They're about to use that gun on you. If there is no deadly force, you are not allowed to draw your weapon, shoot your weapon. That is what they are taught. That is the training. New York City police officers get psychological training. We are taught, when I was there, we were taught to serve and protect. That the idea of power is an exchange. And we are only given power. It's 40,000 cops. It's 8 million people in this city. We are only given power because the people, the community relinquish it to us for trust. And if you break that trust, you have broken that contract. And right now, there is no contract. There is none. We're in the streets saying, don't kill us. And you know what we're hearing? Black on black crime. What is that? And black people, stop posting that. That's not a thing. People kill the people close to them, period. White people kill white people. Asians kill Asians. Hispanics kill Hispanics. People kill who were closest to them. And crime is always up in impoverished areas. Black people don't have a cultural issue. We have a poverty issue. If you go to some poor white area, you have these same issues. Exact. Drugs, guns, violence, robbery, everything. Because these are issues of poverty, not of race. People kill the people near them. And poor people tend to do poor crimes. So it is not a cultural issue. What is a cultural issue is systemic racism, no education, lack of job opportunities. When we do get an education, we are still paid less, hired less, getting a nice apartment. I have friends who ran an experiment where they filled out job applications, apartment applications, with the exact same information. Education, making the money, and all that. Except there was a black name and a white name. The black name never got called. They called the white name twice, just to be sure that he still didn't win. I have a friend that worked for an educational program that when hiring, was hired to go through the names to get rid of ethnic sounding names. This is real. This is real. So the issues that lead to higher crime in poor areas is real. And it does not justify murder, because last time I checked, having drugs on you didn't have a capital punishment. Stealing cigarettes didn't have a capital punishment. Even having drugs or guns don't carry capital punishment. Cops are not judges. They're not supposed to be executioners. If there's no deadly force, if there's not somebody out there shooting at a bunch of people, they are not supposed to show up and shoot people. We are supposed to be safe. When cops show up, we're supposed to be safe. I don't like not feeling safe. That's a problem for me. And the idea that I'm a mother now and I can't feel safe from my child, it's too much for me. It's too much. And the idea that this police union leader stands out there with almost all white cops, with 2 or 3 black cops hiding in between them, to make it seem like they don't know New York City has a problem. Did you just become a cop yesterday? And again, New York City is still amongst the best. I still take a New York cop over a Tennessee cop. When I lived in Tennessee, every time I saw a cop, I was afraid. There were hardly any black cops. I knew one guy who became a black cop, but you rarely saw cops that looked like you. And the interactions were terrifying. And to know that if this person just shoots me, nothing's going to happen. No knock warrants just busting through your door and shooting you. That's terrifying. That's our reality. And what do? What, should we live in a better neighborhood? The neighborhoods, again, that we can't get in. Because if they see a Shaniqua or Raheem, they're not even stopping. My name is Cheryl. I've shown up for job interviews and watched them say Cheryl and look at the blonde girl and be shocked that that's my resume. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. All right. I want to take a second and talk about my time in the South, because life is different. And while I may get into the butts of New York City police officers, I tell you what, I'll take an NYPD cop over any other cop in this country any day, any day. Because at least the cops here, there's a good amount of them that are minorities, and you feel seen. Which is another reason why that cop video where you only saw a few black cops was weird, because New York City actually has a good amount of black police officers, black, Hispanic, Asian. So it was a little bit weird that they gathered up all the white cops. Well, not really weird, because do the black and Latino and Asian cops really want to stand there as this guy says this craziness? So, but living in the South, it was, the bigger problem was the microaggressions of race, and how people realize that, they're not supposed to openly say racist things, but it was almost like they couldn't help it. You meet somebody for the first time and there's clearly a shift in their energy. They feel like they're thinking about every single word before they say it. It almost feels like they're trying to hold back the N word. Like if they just speak freely, nigger's just going to fall out. And that energy I pick up on, and it becomes, off-putting for me. But then you have the people who just say crazy things. I once had a boss that said during a staff meeting where it's a couple of women, it was all women, uh, two white, two black girls, one of us was gay. Um, and then he said, unprovoked, like he came down to deal with an issue between two of the staff members that was already resolved when he got there. And, one of the women said, oh, women are crazy. He's, oh, you shouldn't say that. And I thought, oh, this is going well. Good. I have a boss that has some sense about, sexual harassment training. But no, that's not where he was going. He says, I made a joke when I was in corporate America and I got in trouble for it about race, about my own race. First of all, a lot of people don't want to play that game with you. We don't want you to joke about your own race and then you can swing that game this way. No, no, no. I don't want you to make fun of your race. I don't want to talk about race if we're not talking about diversity and inclusion or the actual issues that people deal with race. But, then he says, and I actually got in trouble. Then this man says to that group I just described, there are no laws to protect the young, straight, white male in America. Now, I'm from New York City, so I looked around to see if anybody else was going to laugh because clearly this man is joking or has lost his mind. And the worst part is no one else even flinched. Are you crazy? There was a point where I had to tell that boss that he needed to watch his mouth and everything that came to his head didn't need to come out of his lips. Not in that instant. I waited till later because, of course, the comments just never go away. This is a man that also never didn't provide health care, but at the same time wanted to talk about Obamacare all the time as a bad thing, a giveaway. He and his racist sister, they were horrible human beings. But the more I stayed in the South, the more comfortable I got with just starting the discussions on race. And when all the shootings started to happen and the first Black Lives Matters protest started, it became clear that people definitely weren't comfortable with it, but that times hadn't changed. The things they would say, I could picture their parents or grandparents saying it about the first civil rights movement in the 60s, in the 50s and the 60s. I like the fact that these protesters annoyed them and frustrated them and the all lives matters BS. And it got to the point where I was what you could call the white whisperer because all of my white coworkers would come to have this conversation with me. And let's be clear, I don't mind. I love if you have a question, please let's talk about it because I may be the only Black person that you get to speak openly to about this. And I may be the only person that can get the message to the rest of your people. So please come at me and I will speak to you freely. And they did. But then I'm at work dealing with the trauma of seeing another Black person murdered, another lynching at the hands of either cops or citizens who are pretending to be cops, and no one has any consequences ever. Realizing that I am not safe. No one in my family is safe. The many friends that I love that wear my skin are not safe. And I am at work stressed about it. And they don't get that. And they're like, hey, what's wrong? Why do you look sad? They're murdering Black people. On the internet, you can see a bunch of murdered Black people. Is that okay? Did you know them? I am them. I am them. White privilege is the privilege of individuality. The privilege of not having to care when it doesn't affect you personally. Because you get to be an individual. Black people have to move as a unit because we are judged and punished as a unit. But I would get the, Cheryl, how do you feel when I say all lives matter? I feel like you're telling me to shut up because we both know that there are people being murdered, Black people disproportionately, unarmed at any given time. So if all lives matter, you wouldn't feel the need to say that because Black lives are the lives in danger right now. When I found out that China had the one child rule and people were discarding baby girls in the street, my thought wasn't, well, what about the Black kids here? It was, oh my God, that's horrible. What can be done? How can we help? This is an outrage, those poor Chinese girls. Because that wasn't about me. Yes, we have issues, but it wasn't about me. We are humans. Don't say all lives matter if you don't mean it. And if you mean it, then stand with me and say Black lives matter, so don't kill them. The idea that we say Black lives matter and you hear only, that is you. That is your sickness. Cheryl, what do you think about Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the flag? Do you think it's disrespectful? What? What does that have to do with the flag? Oh, it's the anthem. You mean the anthem that talks about slavery? The anthem you didn't give two craps about? Are you serious? You can't be serious. But let me tell you, seriously, my grandmother's wall is covered in soldiers. My sister, right now, three siblings are signed up for the armed forces. I came this close, but I got into my college, so I went there. I am part of an Army family. There's not been a war in this country that my family has not served in. Yet, we do not get the same rights. The same basic human rights as white people that have not served. That avoid serving, like our president. Black people don't get to dodge Vietnam. My sister came home as a Black woman. Her rights are just as in danger. Her son is in danger. That is her flag and my flag, and I can kneel at it if I want. I'm an American. I get to protest how I want to protest. You don't get to tell me that you don't like my protest. That's the problem with racism. We're not going to talk about the murders. We're going to talk about the fact that you don't like how we're protesting. The truth is, you don't like that we're protesting. You don't like that we have the nerve to ask you to stop killing us because we should just be happy to be not be the ones that was murdered. How dare you? How dare you? I'm so sick of turning on shows like The View that I typically like. I mean, since the election, I have my own things with them. But to hear them, some of them still make the false arguments about the protest. Well, you know, with the flag, I have a lot of respect for the flag. I'm an Army brat. So am I. What is your point? Be an American and care that Americans are being murdered on American soil by a police state. Care. I'm sorry, y'all. I know I'm getting upset, but seriously. And let's be clear. I have white friends. I have white people that I love dearly. Dearly. Some of my closest friends are white. My mother-in-law is a white woman and I love her. She is amazing. And she cares. My white friends are allies. Because they love me and my family and my children, they recognize my pain. If either you are an ally or you are a problem. That's it. That is it. That no more distracting the conversation. Because all lives matter and all those other things racist white people say, or racist people. Let me not say white people, because we all know there are some white supremacist black people. And understanding white supremacy is the belief that white is the standard, white is the norm, and that everything else should be trying to elevate itself to the standard of whiteness. And others are less than and less deserving and less American. The idea that assimilation is the way to be an American is complete BS. And the idea that if it is not American enough or white enough, then it does not deserve to be valued. The idea of bringing up someone's criminal past as a way to justify their murder that had nothing to do with the criminal past, that even if it did not, the criminal past was not deserving of the death penalty. They wouldn't have gotten the death penalty had they gone to court. The idea of bringing up something years later, are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. The problem with white supremacy and racism is the whiteness controls the American narrative, and the conversation is always moving. We're always defending ourselves instead of them defending themselves on why they support white supremacy. We talk about white supremacy, and then I'm hit with black on black crime. I'm hit with, well, why is he a martyr? Which is not, you don't know what that word means. Why is he a martyr if he's a bad guy? What about this? What about that? All lives matter, BS, BS. What about the flag? Why are we not talking about the fact that people are being murdered in the streets all over America for no reason? And it is justified because they're black. No one cares. America is sick. Racism is sick. It is a sickness. And we need to call it out every single time. And it is systemic. You can watch tons of documentaries. You can read some books on it. 13 is mind-blowing. If you haven't seen 13 by Ava DuVernay, whom I love you, Ava. One day we're going to work together. I just know it in my heart. But you can do something. Now, yes, we are out in these streets, and I am so proud of every single person, even though please wear your mask because the coronavirus is still out there, and I'm afraid of the second wave. So please wear your mask. Try not to touch anybody. Be safe. Be careful. But the way these protesters are being treated, as though we don't know, just a few weeks back, there were white people armed to the T with huge rifles because they were asked to wear masks to protect American society. We have a pandemic going on and they were asked to wear a mask, and they're trying to force the system to reopen when they're just trying to save lives. Those people were justified in their protests. They're crazy, bro. Oh, because they have real issues. Because it's not just about the mask and the pandemic. It's because they have to feed their families. Well, how do we feed our families when our fathers are being murdered in the streets? Or you kill my child, or me in the middle of the night, or come into my house while I'm eating ice cream and shoot me because you had the wrong door. Sick. So what do? We protest. We make our voices heard. We let people know that we are sick of this. And the civil rights movement of the 50s and the 60s pushed us. The Black Power movement pushed us. The first Black Lives Matters movement started to push us, and we need to continue the pushing. I love me some Barack Obama, Barack and Michelle. I named my son Barack, but he didn't do enough. Just there wasn't enough criminal reform. He tried some, and I realized it was hard, but we can't expect a racist to do more than the black guy did. Not without tying his hands behind his back and kicking his ass out of the White House. Trump's not going to do more. He's a racist. That's just out and out. That's not a secret. It's not a question. The idea that someone would try to argue with me, we knew he was a racist when he ran because he would just say racist things. He has been sued a number of times for racial discrimination. He put out a full ad to murder children who were found innocent of a crime they were wrongfully jailed for, and still to this day doubles down that they should have been murdered because for him, they were black kids in a park being bad and just kill them. He doesn't care. So he does not care, the law and order president. He doesn't give a damn about law and order. He breaks the law constantly. If you pay any attention to the politics, this man is breaking constitutional laws all the time. He's trying to just completely break down our democracy. Please know that voting him out is the first step. Now, no, I'm not crazy about Joe Biden. Joe Biden's history on civil rights is super problematic, but Joe isn't as adverse to it as Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants white supremacy to lead. Joe Biden can be pushed. So we have to find somebody that can be pushed. Bernie wanted it, but y'all didn't want Bernie, all right? Not enough, okay? So right now, we focus on Biden, we get him in, and we make sure his administration does what we need them to do. We need them to defund the police. That doesn't mean abolish the police, but it means they should be militarized. There shouldn't be more money going into policing the communities than providing for the communities. I've been working since I was 12, paying taxes. My tax dollars should be going to educational programs, after school programs. The fact is, New York City, yes, we are taxed heavily, but I grew up in a city that had tons of programs that saved my life. Got me out of the projects to go skiing and skating and Broadway shows and arts and craft and dance classes. And it gave me something else to look forward to. That's where our money should be going. And our police should have to be a part of that. Now, New York City, like I said, growing up, I was pro-cop because the cops in my community were often a part of these programs. We need that. Training. The kind of training that NYPD officers have, everyone should have as a base. Everyone should get psychological training. Everyone should have to go through a really, really strenuous process to get the job in the first place. They do like a 2-month psychological test program investigation thing. That is not an easy thing. You have to speak to psychiatrists and everything. It was not easy becoming a cadet, but it wasn't supposed to be. Because even though I didn't have a gun, I had a badge. And that New York City Police Department badge should mean, trust me, I am here for your service. I am your servant. That is what cops are. They are our servants. They need to be serving our communities, caring for us, all of us. So you shouldn't just come to the community to stand on the block and get rid of drug dealers and get quotas. You should be involved in the programs. You should know everybody. Everybody should know you. We should know your name. You should know our name. That is what it's about. And basic, simple. If you commit a crime as a cop, including murder, you go to jail for the same amount of time as a citizen. Period. Period. If you murder somebody and it is an unjustified killing, investigated by an outside investigator, not your local DAs and local investigators that are as racist as you are or don't want the bad publicity, can ship it under a rug. No. You should, like the idea, and you should be tried in the community where it happened. If it's justified, the community will understand. Black people are not unreasonable. If you were in mortal danger and you were about to be murdered, Black people, as a cop, we don't want cops to die. No one wants cops to die. Not even criminals want cops to die. That's not part of the game. No one just has fun killing cops. But you cannot just kill us and then expect us to respect you. If you murder somebody, you go to jail. If you murder somebody, you have to, it's investigated outside and then it's brought back to the community to be tried. Amadou Diallo's killers should have been tried in the Bronx, not Albany. People in New York don't just hate cops. We don't. But we want to be respected by our police officers. And that respect you can't even think of in another city or state. Tennessee was terrifying. And that's on top of the Confederate flags and the Trump stickers and all the many Confederate monuments that are everywhere. Like, I went to film school down there and all over the place. A big Nathan Bedford Forrest. You mean the guy who founded the Klan? It's as though what killed me about moving to the South was it was as though no one told them they lost. It's as though they didn't know they lost the war, because who would erect all these monuments and memorialize all these battlegrounds for a war that you lost? It's like they don't know. It's like you're in the Confederate States of America. Another good documentary if you haven't seen it, CSA. But being down there and just constantly being in this state of your heritage is deep in the horrific, horror, monstrous system of slavery. There were no good slave owners. That's not a thing. The founders were not good people. They were slave owners that did a good thing when it came to their government. And the good thing was creating a system that was supposed to be a part of a more perfect union. They set the Constitution up in a way that it could constantly progress to get better, to where you could give Black people and women the right to vote, to where you are supposed to recognize that we're all human beings. I'm so heartbroken that this is the state of our union. But I'm an American and I'm hopeful. My child's an American. And I want to continue to fight to get him that American dream. Pay attention. Pay attention to our narrative. Who is telling the story and how they are telling it. Take control. Do not allow people to change the discussion. If you're talking about race, instead of you explaining Black statistics, have them explain why they're even bringing that up. Stick to the discussion. Do not get gaslit into fighting this ever-moving target. The target is racism. The target is bigotry. Do not let anyone distract us. We are fighting for our lives. We are fighting for our children's lives. All right, y'all. You know, sometimes the Nappy Frappe is going to be fun, you know. I'll try to make the next one fun. Sometimes it's going to get emotional, and sometimes it's just got to get real, you know. And so, thank you. I don't think for the whole show I said, if you like the Nappy Frappe, if you want to continue to catch my videos and be a part of the discussion, I discuss everything, all parts of life. Hit like, share, click the subscribe button, and hit the notification so you'll know whenever I get a new video. Tell everybody about it, and join me next week. Every week we're gonna talk about something else.